is God in that camp. But families also are made up of individuals. When you are alone as an individual in your own space, is God in that camp? That's the question that we are dealing with this afternoon. So when you look at the passage that we just read, the background to that is the story happens during the time or the era of the judges. This is when Israel had settled in Canaan, but before the era of the kings. So Israel was led by people who were referred to as judges. Israel was actually led by 15 judges in total. At the point where we get this story, the judge number 14 was now in charge of Israel. But what was happening during this course of the hundreds of years that stretched during the time of the judges, you will appreciate that when Israel was going into Canaan, God gave them terms and conditions. And God told them that when you are in this land, if you disobey my word and you start behaving in this way or that way, the nations that are in the Canaan land are going to conquer you and you'll be subject to them. So you realize that when Israel was now settled in Canaan, this is what was happening. They would move away from God. They'll start doing evil. They'll start doing the practices of the nations that were surrounding them. Then God would not be happy with that. He would allow another nation to conquer them and they will be persecuted. When they suffered persecution, they will then go to God, cry before God, plead with God. Then God would raise among them a judge. A judge would lead them, deliver them. Then after they get settled, when they got comfortable, the cycle would go this over and over again. Does that sound familiar? When things are going on well for us and we forget that there is God, then we find ourselves in situations where things are not going on well and we start looking for God. We start fasting, we start praying, we present prayer requests, we are in prayer beds. Then we get comfortable and we forget there is God. So when you read the book of Judges, at least 3 chapters will open by the statement that says, and Israel did evil again. So it was something that they would do again and again. Now at this point where we got this story, Israel had done evil again. And because of their evil, they were now under the rulership of the Philistines. So they were being ruled by Philistines. But this time they decided that no, the judge was Eli, who was also doubling as the high priest. Now at this point, Israel decided that no, let's do it differently this time. Instead of crying to God for God to give us a judge, let's just take matters into our own hands. So they decided to go to war with the Philistines so that they could liberate themselves. They organized themselves and they went to battle with the Philistines. That's what has been described to us in that passage. We are told that when they engaged in the battle, 4,000 men of Israel, footmen, were slaughtered. Then they retreated. When they retreated, they regrouped in their camp and they held an emergency meeting, a post-battle meeting to try and find out what went wrong in the battle because they had lost heavily on the battlefront. Now it is in that meeting where somebody suggested that God has slaughtered us today. Does that sound familiar? When we make our own decisions, move away from God, do stuff that we do when we are far from God, Then we get into trouble because of our actions, and we are quick to blame God for that. So they said, now God has slaughtered us. So what shall we do? Because it is God who has defeated us, not Philistines. What are we going to do? Then it was decided in that meeting that let us send someone, or let us send people to go and collect the ark of the Lord, the ark of the covenant from Shiloh, and bring the ark here. So that when the ark is here, the ark will deliver us. Are you following the reasoning? Let's send someone to Israel, back to Shiloh. Let them bring the what? The ark. So that when the ark is here, who is going to deliver us from the hands of the Philistines? The ark. You know, when I read the Bible, I get so excited such that I cease to be a reader. I imagine things as it were I was right in that meeting, listening to the deliberations that were going on in that meeting. Then in my imagination, I picture somebody raising their hand and to say, gentlemen, I don't want to spoil the party here. I hear that we are all excited that we are going to get the ark. But I just want to remind you about a few things concerning the ark. At Shiloh, the ark is in the most holy place. And nobody goes in the most holy place. The only time someone goes there is once in a year on the Day of Atonement. And he who goes there is only one man, Eli, the high priest. And before he goes into the most holy place, all Israel as a nation, he has to fast and pray for him. So that by the Day of Atonement, when he goes in, every sin amongst Israel has been confessed. And when all that has been done, Eli, when he goes there, he wears a robe that has bells. And his leg is tied with a long rope. So that when he gets into the most holy place, peradventure, there is sin among Israel. He will die right there in the most holy place. So when we hear no more the sound of the bells, we know that he is dead. The rope is then what is used to pull him, because no one can go in there to take his body. Then the person says, and just to add to that, I want to tell you that when the high priest goes in the most holy place, he is not going there to take out the ark. He just goes there to minister and leaves the ark right there. Ladies and gentlemen, the idea of bringing the ark may be as simple as we may want to believe. Then there's silence in the meeting. Then I also see a hand. Somebody raise a hand and they say, I think Brother Kuda is being too technical about this thing. Actually, as a matter of fact, let me privilege you. I happen to be so close to Phineas and Ophnia, who are priests who serve at Shiloh in the tabernacle. They have confided in me that they've actually been in and outside of the most holy place a few times. And they are still alive, as we all know. So actually, the idea of taking the ark out of the holy place is feasible. It's practical. It can be done. So the brother is worrying too much. Then I hear the chanting, go get the ark. Go get the ark. Join me catering. Go get the ark. Does that sound familiar? In some of our church board meetings, church business meetings, when somebody speaks sense being led by the Spirit, then somebody powerful, more eloquent raises their hands and they say, as a matter of fact, the brother is just spiritualizing everything here. This can actually be done. So a delegation is sent. They get to Shiloh. I want to believe that they did not tell Eli that we want to get the ark. Because as the high priest, he will tell them it's not possible. But maybe they told him. And he told them he was not going in there to get the ark. But then I hear Phineas and Hophni saying we can actually take the ark. We can do it for Israel. Then maybe they go together and say, brother, let's do it for Israel. I see them going into the holy place. They go close to the veil. They say, this is it, brother. On the count of 3, we go behind the veil. They count 1, 2, 3. They go behind the veil. They look around. Behold, they are alive. Then they positioned themselves between the staves which were used to carry the ark. Then probably they say, brother, on the count of 3, we get hold of the staves. They count 1, 2, 3. They grab the staves and they are alive. Brother, on the count of 3, we lift it up. 1, 2, 3. They raised it up. Behold, they are alive. Then they say, brother, let's march out. They march out of the veil into the holy place, past the altar of incense, past the table of showbread, past the 7 candlestick, outside into the outer court, towards the east gate, out of the east gate, carrying the ark, and behold, they are alive. I see the soldiers who were waiting eagerly outside of the tabernacle, wondering what was going on. When they saw Phineas and Hophni coming out of the tabernacle carrying the ark, they shouted with joy that God is with us. Then the ark is brought into the camp. Now the Bible says when the ark got into the camp, there was so much noise, shouting, and joy in the camp of Israel, such that the earth vibrated. The mountains echoed from the noise. And the noise reached the camp of the Philistines. And the Philistines asked themselves, what is the meaning of this noise in the Hebrew camp? So, you know, the way they were fighting these battles back then, you could actually send some intelligence from one camp to the other and convey a message. Probably negotiate how the battle should be fought, probably even negotiate to surrender. So the Philistines sent some intelligence. Go and inquire what the noise is about. So I see maybe 2-3 gentlemen are sent. Then they get to the Israel camp. They raise their arms and they say, we come in peace. We have been just sent to inquire. So they are welcomed. Then they say, we have been sent by our commander. He wants to know what the noise and excitement is all about. Because when we fought, we thought we defeated you. We slaughtered your men. What could be the noise about? Then the Bible said they were mad to understand. Now, church, I want you to follow me. They are taken into some tent, I believe, where the ark had been placed on a table. And Phineas on the other side, Hophni on the other side. So the Philistines are brought into this tent and they are told, we want to show you what the noise is all about. So they are shown, you see, those two gentlemen that you see that are dressed differently, they are the priests of the mighty God of Israel. What you see between them is called the Ark of the Covenant. The figures that you see on top of the ark with the wings stretched towards each other, they are called the cherubims. Between them is where the Shekinah glory dwells, the very presence of God himself. In this ark, when you open the lid, it's not just a lid, but it is also called the mercy seat. When we take it up, inside the ark, there is a pot of manna, which is still fresh after hundreds of years. Inside the ark, there is a rod of Aaron that budded. Inside of this ark are 2 tablesstones written by God's own finger. It is this very ark that when our forefathers carried it and stood in the flooded river Jordan, the river ceased to flow. It is this very ark that when our forefathers carried it and marched around Jericho, the walls of Jericho came tumbling down. Now it is that ark that we have brought into the camp today, so that we can teach you Philistines a lesson in battle. Now they are kicked out. Now go and tell your elders what we have just told you. The Bible said when they got there and they conveyed the message, there was wailing and mourning in the camp of the Philistines. And the reason why they cried was, God is in the camp. God has come into the camp of the Hebrews. Who is going to deliver us from the mighty hands of these gods? History had told them what happened to Pharaoh. History had told them what happened to Jericho. They knew what this God could do. That's why they were crying. Then the story, the narrative takes a strange twist. Suddenly, there is a voice that addresses Philistines. And we are not told in the Bible whose voice it was. But when you go through the passage, we are told what the voice said to Philistines. Get yourselves like men. Go to battle, fight these Israelites. Don't allow them to rule you like we have been ruling them. Be strong. Then the Bible says they then engaged for the second time. And Israel was slaughtered. Remember, at the first, how many were slaughtered? How many? 4,000. Second round, how many? How many? Anyone with the Bible? Is it 30,000? Hey, you know, to try and locate a verse when you're coming straight from sleep, it's hectic. How many? 30,000. So now we have 34,000 Israelites slaughtered. If you know the history of Israel, this is a national disaster. Because Israel, under Moses, they went to battle and came back having lost no man, not a single man. Under Joshua, when Israel went to battle with Ai, and about 30 men or so were killed, it was declared a national disaster in Israel. Everyone had to fast and wear sackcloth because 30 men were what? Were killed. Now we are talking of 34,000 killed. But the disaster did not end there. The disaster did not end there. 34,000 men killed. The priests, Phineas and Hophni, killed. The ark, let's go and bring the what? The ark. So that the ark will what? Will save us. The ark captured. What went wrong? What is it that Israel did wrong on that day? I just want to share with you 3 lessons, then we'll be done. That we need to guard against also a scattering church, so that we don't make the same mistakes that Israel made on that day. Mistake number 1. Israel confused God's long suffering, God's patience, God's tolerance for approval. Are you following the pastor? Israel confused God's patience, God's tolerance for approval. Does that sound familiar? When we start doing some practices that we know are against God, but somehow God allows us to be, then we get comfortable in those habits and we start reasoning that actually God understands my situation. Actually, God is allowing this to go on. So it means God is seeing that I am struggling. Actually, God approves of what I'm doing. When you stop remitting tithes, but then you continue being blessed. You actually get a raise at work. You actually buy a car when everyone else is not driving. And you begin to feel that actually God seems to understand what I'm doing here. God
approves what I'm doing. God is with me. That's what Israel did. The Bible will tell you that Phineas and Hophni, as much as they were priests, they did not know God. Church, did you know that it is possible to work for God when you have no relationship with God? So, the Bible will tell you of the evil things that Phineas and Hophni were doing right in the tabernacle, but they did not die. Do you remember the sons of Aaron who just came into the tabernacle with some strange fires, and God killed them instantly? But Phineas and Hophni did worse than the sons of Aaron, and they didn't die. And the longer they lived, they began to think that God was with them. God was approving. They confused God's patience for tolerance. Lesson number 2. Israel went to battle with the ark of God, without God of the ark. Israel went to battle with the what? With the ark of God, but in the absence of God of the ark. Does that sound familiar? When we run around with God's things without God of the things. Church, did you know that proximity to holy things does not make you holy? Being close to the holy things does not make you what? Holy. They agreed in their meeting that once we have the ark here, all our problems are solved. But the ark of God is nothing without God of the ark. Have you seen how ineffective we are when we run around with the gospel of Jesus without Jesus of the gospel? Have you ever heard someone trying to communicate the health message of Jesus without Jesus of the health message? How angry they become that you are eating meat. And you wonder, why is the brother so upset? We've become so ineffective when we run with God's things without God of the things. Elders, it is practical, it is actually biblical that you can be an elder of the church of God without God of the church. A director of the Pathfinders of God without God of the Pathfinders. The result of that is disastrous. It's a battle that we are going to lose. That's what Israel did. Ran with God's things, without God of the things. The last lesson from that passage is that when the ark came and Israel got excited and started making noise and celebrating before the battle was fought, started celebrating the victory before the battle, they were so carried away and got lost in their own noise. They got lost in what? In their own noise. Does that sound familiar?